The auditorium was empty except for a single piece of furniture. Any apartment will do as long as the rent is low. I'm not particular about it. His 60-year-old cousin inherited a piece of real estate by a lake. So much for small talk. Let's get down to business. Lucy resented aggressive salesman trying to make her sign a contract. There are a number of factors that discourage us from investing in stocks. Japan imports various raw materials and exports manufactured goods. In the course of its economic development, Japan must abandon its traditional values. The world is faced with an unprecedented crisis. In short, the purpose of a regulation is to protect domestic industries. In order to keep up its competitiveness in the world, Japan must undertake sweeping deregulation in earnest. The auditorium was empty except for a piece of furniture. We cannot turn our backs on desperate people who are at risk. The parliament is decided to provide developing countries with financial aid. Some say the British monarchy should be abolished. What do you think? They sought shelter from the attack, but found no place to hide. There is a little prospect that the two countries will make significant progress in disarmament. The negotiations are on the way. Before long, they will enter a crucial phase. The slaves will access to alter their destinies. The aristocrats abuse their privileges to their heart's content. The revolution in itself bore no fruit after all. Bob cut in on the conversation saying, "I'm against it," but everybody ignored him. We skipped his turn on purpose. He saw someone being bullied, but he turned a blind eye. When Nick and I cheated an exam, I was suspended from school. As for Nick, he got away with it. They are hostile at each other because they're jealous of his wealth and status. I hate him. He behaves as if he were somebody. In spite of a compliment, he frowned and turned away. He was so rude. He claimed that enormous property was at his disposal. The more stubborn you are, the more isolated you become. Don't beat around the bush. What am I supposed to do? Just wait and see. Time will tell. Please hand in your assignment via email no later than 5 p.m. on June 10th. Joe is anything but diligent. That's why he flunked math again. His thesis doesn't make sense. To begin with, its theme is obscure. His essay was precise and to the point. How are you going to deal with this complicated problem? Leave it to me. It's a piece of cake. Nick, I want you to look this over before turning in. Sorry, but I have my hands full right now. What if I don't meet the deadline? I bet he'll get mad at you. Your summary leaves nothing to be desired, apart from the terrible handwriting. You ought to think over whether the premise is valid or not. Above all, scientific terms call for precise definitions. First of all, learn the formula by heart. To calculate the volume, multiply the length by the width by the depth. Tiny cracks were found in the bottom of the barrel. This chapter will focus on the concept of geometry. Phil is much more interested in academic subjects than in practical skills. Something's gone wrong with this microscope. I need to have it repaired. Let me see it. Maybe I can fix it. What is an instrument? For instance, a gauge such as a thermometer or barometer. The minute particles are barely visible to the naked eye. Muscle tissue consists of a vast number of cells. This substance mostly composed of hydrogen and oxygen. The exact temperature is 22.68 degrees Celsius. Naomi likes to show off her perfect figure. I wish I were thin like her. I envy her. You could go on a diet. I fell in love with Naomi at first sight. 3 months later, I took a chance to propose to her, but she turned me down. I met the man by chance. He is gentle and smart. What's more, he's single. His nephew was brought up to be modest, considerate. I introduced Bob to my folks, and they took to him at once. People should be judged not so much how they look as by who they are. It's not your title that counts, that's for sure, exclaimed Bob. As a self-made manipulate, a man of vision will make good in the end. Keep in mind that youth is not eternal. I can't figure out why on earth everybody feels so much contempt for Bob. I can't help laughing at him because he keeps on making his mistakes. He'd be the last person to learn his lesson. To make matters worse, he isn't even conscious of annoying us. Since I was in a hurry, I put my gloves on inside out by mistake. Dave is fat and clumsy. When he leaped over the shallow stream, he stumbled and twisted his ankle. I'm scared of heights. You're a coward. The passive man seldom, if ever, expresses himself in public. Nick convinced me that all superstitions are irrational. I trembled with fear at the thought of an injection. Since Bob was late at heart, he frequently neglects his duties. While Bob was at work, Jennifer at home absorbed in silly soap operas. Bob likes cartoons, but I don't think much of them. As a matter of fact, they are boring. It occurred to me that he was holding something back because he wouldn't look me in the eye. When her patience gave out, she grabbed his collar and swore at him. I must admit, we quarrel every now and then, but generally, we are on good terms with each other. Do you mind if I stop by your house? No, not at all. Be my guest. Hold on, I'll be right back. Don't hang up. I can't put you up. For one thing, my dad drops in on me from time to time. While Jennifer was standing still, Bob was pacing back and forth along the sidewalk. Let's make up, Lisa. Stop taking me for granted. We're through for good this time. I mean it. Come on, don't get so emotional, Lisa. I didn't mean to hurt you. Let's talk it over. You betrayed me. Please forgive me. How can I make it up to you? I'll get even. You should confess your sins rather than conceal them. Keep your word, otherwise you'll end up losing face. Bob sticks to his moral principle and believes that honesty pays off in the long run. Cheer up, you couldn't help it. I did my best. I know. Don't dwell on the past. You can start over. Jane, please do me a favor and give me a ride to Times Square. I wish I could, but I'm tied up right now. As usual, Mike turned up on time. The other day, I ran out of gas in the middle of a busy interstate. A truck driving ahead of me skidded, turned over, and scattered its load all over the road. He recalled that the collision had been avoided by sheer luck. In case of an emergency, get in touch with my agent right away. Jane, where are we heading? I think we're lost. We went in the wrong direction. Damn, pull over. My rusty Ford broke down, obstructing the intersection. There are so many fine scratches and dents on its surface. It's no use polishing it. Hey, we are stuck in the traffic jam. Chill out, Joe. Let's take a shortcut. We'll get in there in time. I've got a flat tire. Can you give me a hand? I'd be glad to. The ambulance went out of control and came close to running over a pedestrian. He contains the primitive life once existed on Mars. The crew is barely preparing for voyages into outer space. They conducted serious experiments under zero gravity. Many astronomers assume that the universe will expand infinitely. The astronauts were greeted with spontaneous applause. A fund was set up with the view of preserving a danger planet. The massive flood paralyzed the local transportation network. The equators divide the globes into two hemispheres. I think it's cruel to animal for fur coats. The organization plays a principal role in wildlife conservation. Many fragile species are on the verge of extinction. The prolonged drought did severe damage to the crops. Tropical rainforests are quickly disappearing on a global scale. In part, it is due to acid rain. It is said that global warming is directly related to carbon dioxide emissions. The destruction of the ozone layer affects the environment. The committee called on all nations to work side by side to curb air pollution. A satellite was launched into orbit to monitor melting glaciers.